Happy Monday. Happy Monday. Another beautiful day to have life in this body and control of my faculties, the ability to start again, start anew. Happy Monday. So tonight, for the fourth episode of Magic Mondays, we are talking about movement. What is stuck must move. And so many times we feel like when we feel stuck, for example, we might feel like our business isn't moving in the direction or as fast as we'd like it to move. Or we might feel like our relationship is circling and or not moving at all. And it feels something in it is stuck. We might feel like something is just missing in life and we feel stuck. Like maybe we don't know our true purpose and therefore don't have a certain next step to take identified. It might also be showing up in your health. You might feel like you get sick a lot, or you just feel low energy, or you might feel like you are having trouble with your digestion. Any of these are not only episodal or circumstance related, but they are also energetic, and energy is meant to flow. And when it is not allowed to flow, either because we aren't giving it permission or we are withholding something that is meant to be in motion, like an emotion or the truth or love, any of these things can get in the way of our felt forward progress, of our felt connection to progress, of our felt sense of flow. And we talked about the three primary obstacles to our felt sense of freedom, which I'll revisit now, which are stuck energy, which I've just named many types and ways that stuck energy can show up. And then we have inner conflict. That is when some aspect of ourselves has one idea of what we should be doing, what we're allowed to do, and another part of us wants something completely different. And we aren't allowed to experience it because we're at odds. And so some things that might show up in our lives might be polling our friends. It might be feeling like we're confused, or it might be that we feel like we aren't able to make a decision and we aren't sure why. And so all of these are examples. And then finally, we have disempowerment, a feeling of a lack of choice or control. And often that is coming at the cost of, as a result of, and directly connected to our inaction. So there's usually some action we know we need to take, but we're not taking it. So that was just a little revisit. And so tonight, what I wanted to talk about is movement and the ways that movement can show up for us and be something that helps us move toward momentum and ignites momentum. It's the foundation of momentum, right? Movement is the igniter. We take that first step, then providence and or the universe, or simply the law of inertia, it comes into play, because when something is put in motion, it stays in motion unless acted upon by another force. And so in order to put something in motion, there must be movement. And so some of the ways that movement can show up for us are breath, for example. I just used breath today with a client to help move emotion out of the body. It might also just be movement that is in the moment to neutralize. Maybe you already have momentum in a direction that you no longer wish to go. Let's say you are moving in the direction of anger and you actually want to make a change and shift from that angry direction, which could lead to rage, which could lead to behavior or actions that you'll later regret, right? Or it gives us a block to our creativity. When we are angry, we aren't able to access our creative mind. So we go into a primal state of aggression of this or that thinking. There's more black and white. There's less space for compromise or even to see the nuances of a situation. As nuance is creative, right? Nuance is abundant. Nuance allows us to see what's not just within the box that is being labeled, but allows us to actually appreciate progress on our journey on the way, rather than solely being focused on the outcome only, and only being able to see that as progress. Because sometimes we have goals or dreams or wishes or hopes, or we have choices that we're making in this moment, but have not yet seen the 3D actual enactment or production or outcome come to fruition in this moment yet. And so we might need a little patience. And that way, and on that kind of a journey where something has not yet come to fruition, though the thought and the action has put it into motion, we need to be able to see progress before we get to the end result, the big end result that we're hoping for. And if you haven't found this lesson yet, along the way, what you actually learn is that it is the journey itself. It is the part where you're having the missteps, the mistakes that you might deem them in the moment. It's when things aren't going exactly as you thought they should be laid out in your mind, that we actually get the most gold, that we become as a result of those experiences. And who we become along the journey actually helps us to actually become the person that can handle, manage, operate in that new becoming that is your current goal. Because if you were already that person, you would have it, right? If you were already that person, the person that could have it, you would already have it. So whatever happens between now and then are the things that needed to happen in order for you to become the person that could embody the end result that you're after. So said a lot so far, just checking in. How are we doing? How are we doing? A lot of times I find that people say, I did my movement today, and they use movement meaning exercise, which is totally fine. And movement is a type, is a category that you could put exercise into. However, it's not the only type of movement. And so breath work, for example, like we talked about a few minutes ago, is a kind of movement. It's a movement of your breath. We have the movement of thoughts, which helps us change perspective. Very, very profound to change a thought. And underneath that thought is a belief that got shifted, or new information was introduced, and we allowed ourselves to shift our thinking, which shifted our perspective, which allowed us to see the abundance or the nuance in a situation, or other opportunities that we were not allowing into our purview at the time, right? So this is also movement of thoughts. And so movement of our bodies is also a fantastic way to move energy. And it's really about the intention, isn't it? It's about the type of movement that you're choosing to do in your body. My dog wants to leave. Hold on. There you go, baby. She can't sometimes make up her mind whether she wants to be in the room or not. She's just looking at me now. So that type of movement, the physical kind, can help to expel excess energy from the body. And it really is about our intention, as I mentioned. So if you are looking to gain muscle, per se, let's just say, you need to do a certain kind of movement that's going to give you enough stimulus to actually grow muscle, right? And breathwork is not that movement. So when you say movement, you just have to be aware that your intention is in alignment with the action that you're taking. And that's true for anything. I'm just using that as an example. Sometimes we might have intentions like that are secondary. We might have an intention, let's say, to make more money. And so we go and get a second job. Second job is one way to make more money. It's not the only way. So if your goal is actually to have time freedom and you think money is going to get you there, getting a second job is actually not the best choice for the outcome that you actually desire. Underneath making money, what you really want is time freedom. You want to feel like you can do what you want in your life with your time. So that's an example of a malaligned action, right? So intention is really important, and intention is it's like the breath of movement, right? It's the color of movement. It is the through line that leads to and points in the direction of our desired outcome. And so movement is really important. I was just with a client last week, and he actually couldn't get into a certain position. I was asking him to open his thoracic spine, and we were doing a particular mobility exercise where you expand the space between your shoulder blades. Often a lot of tension sits underneath those blades and then runs up into our neck and causes tightness in our occiput and limits our range of motion in our shoulder. And so then you might have pain, or you might have discomfort lifting things, or even just sitting for long periods or standing for long periods could give you tension headache. And we don't know why. And it's because of the tension that's running down under the shoulder blades. And so we were opening that to give his shoulder mobility a greater range of motion to move within. So he had less discomfort in his shoulders generally. And his body would then change the patterns that it used to act, what muscle activation patterns it would use to pick up something. So anytime we pick up something, because of the way our hands are oriented and where it is relative to our center of gravity, close or far, above or below, it determines how the forces that are put together in order to hold that object, right? And so we have a certain pattern of activation that happens. So right now my bicep is turned on, obviously the muscles inside my hands are turned on, and they are sending sensory information to the muscles that are connected in my forearm. And so a lot is going on, right? A lot is happening. And so when we have a certain activation pattern that is repeated over and over again, the body remembers that, and we will align with the path of least resistance. So that is how we live our lives, because our nervous system is oriented in such a way that its foundational positionality is such that it wants to use the very least amount of energy possible to get an outcome, to achieve whatever task is at hand. And that's just our brain wants to conserve energy. I have so many thoughts right now about my puppy, but let's just stay with this because this is important. So our brain wants to conserve energy. That's what it does. And so if it finds a way that's working to achieve a task that won't injure you, that's not immediately going to cause you peril, then it'll continue doing that pattern. The body has an intelligence that seeks to do things in the way that's going to use the least amount of energy and also achieve safety at the same time. So this isn't something that's consciously done. This is something that happens subconsciously. And the body is so intelligent, and it has an intelligence that helps to keep us safe when we're not even aware of it. It beats our heart, right? It does things on its own without us having to do it. It's autonomic, right? That aspect of our nervous system keeps things moving when we are not giving it attention. And we want it that way. We wouldn't have it any other way. We'd be so focused on remembering to breathe and remembering which foot goes in front of which foot if we didn't have memory in our patterns. However, sometimes those patterns can be of disservice. They can cause us pain. Tension builds up over time because when we have, let's say, tension between our shoulder blades that is built up because we don't feel supported, let's say. Lack of felt support in our lives can certainly cause a tension pattern in our backs, and then we then have headaches, or we have just a sense of tightness or heaviness in our shoulders a lot. It can come from that same tension can be mount upon us when we've been carrying other people's energies, or when we take on their burdens and try to save them or solve them, all of their problems. Anytime we take on energetically or actually responsibilities that are not ours to take on, we can have that as a result, an affect, an effect as well. And so the emotional affect and the heaviness that lands in the body actually densifies, and it might show up subconsciously as something that a massage therapist needs to actually melt away. You notice that that's what massage therapists do. They touch things, and eventually those knots, they melt or they lessen. If they do it too hard, it actually causes injury to the tissue. It can break up the actual tissue and cause scar tissue to form. So the proteins that are in the actual muscle get actually broken when you push too hard. So massage should not hurt. And massage should not hurt. You want to work with the body, in harmony with the body, versus using force. Right? So the energy that we put into a system is going to be the energy that carries through a system. So if you put force into the system, it's going to have a forceful energy about it, no matter as it continues on, right? We just talked about how energy is not created or destroyed. It continues along a path unless acted upon by something else. And so that goes for our bodies when we're on a table and someone's working on us. That goes for an intention that for something we're creating in our lives. We're trying to force something to happen, trying to make it happen, rather than allowing it to unfold. It's a different energy. Force always brings upon it resistance. Force demands resistance. Force means you're pushing against, so there is resistance. And so the question is, what do I need to let go of? What needs to be released in order for the resistance to not impede my progress? And so this is where breath might come in. This is where movement of the body might come in. This is certainly where taking some time away from a situation, or just taking a moment to make a different choice, could come in, right? Giving ourselves an opportunity to become aware of other options versus continuing in the direction of anger, as we talked about earlier. We might just need a moment to see other options, and then realize that putting more force into this fire with this person isn't going to yield the outcome that we actually desire, which may not be to prove that we're right. It might actually to be maintain the relationship. And while you won't compromise your truth, you might choose a different approach. So I've said a lot there. So movement comes in many forms. It might be your truth that needs more moving. It might be emotion. It might be energy. And all of this is actual energy, but you might just actually have a felt sense of energy that needs to move. You might feel riled up, and you need to actually exert, or you just need to ground and bring yourself, or you need to center, bring yourself back to yourself. Vocalizing is also another way of moving energy. And so vocalizing or sharing, getting thoughts out of your head and onto something that can be seen or held, like a piece of paper, or you could vocalize and share your thoughts or feelings and be received by another person, can change things. So that same client that I had, that I was helping him to open up his thoracic spine, and so that he could relieve the tightness between his shoulder blades that was leading to tightness in the base of his skull. I was doing many things. I was working with his fascia. We were putting in and opening up different other muscles that were restricting his rib expansion when he breathed. And it turned out that all those were necessary things to do, and they helped him physically. to feel better in his body. However, I after we did those things that I knew needed to be done, then I just stepped away and I asked him, so what has been on your mind that you haven't been fully expressed about? And, at first, he didn't want to say, and not that he consciously didn't want to say, but he was a little reluctant to say initially because it wasn't immediately present in his mind. So we had to go into the body a bit. And it turned out that he did have some things that needed to be shared and voiced. And as a result, when that was over and we allowed him to be fully expressed, I revisited the movement, and voila, he was able to do it with great ease. He almost flopped open. His back had completely cleared, and he was blown away. And he was, he knows he's working with me, so he knows the work is good. However, you can't help but to be in awe, when the body's intelligence responds so quickly that you get immediate relief or opening, and something works so well that you feel the difference immediately. And it's one of those things, sometimes we think that change has to take a long time, and that's not true. We can also just choose to let go. That can be a choice. And then as a result, we are that powerful. We can choose to just let go. Sometimes things need to be let go of in layers, because sometimes let's say you have a river of desire, and at the end of that river is an outcome that you want. And so you're on this journey traveling toward this outcome, and you run into obstacles along the way. Let's say you want to have a job that is easy and lucrative, or a business that's easy and lucrative. And as you move down this river, you bump into a rock. And it might be easy to just actually move that rock out of the way because it's hand sized. Maybe it was just something that occurred last week, between you and the clerk at the store. There was a little exchange, a heated exchange, and you just needed to breathe, let go, forgive yourself for letting yourself get angry and perhaps displace your anger on someone that wasn't deserving of it. Or maybe you've been working on reacting and not reacting, on being aware when you're doing it, and you go and so you're holding some guilt or some judgment for yourself, and that's a less sticky thing in the moment to release. You can change your mind, you can allow peace to come in. And then there might be things that have happened so long ago that were so emotionally impactful that layers at a time come off, because we talked about the subconscious or the body, and also the nervous system may not want to release all of it at once into the system. It may just only allow a small part of it or a layer of it energetically to be released. And you feel lighter, and you also can sense there's still more to be let go, just not today. And so all of these things, this movement of emotion, this movement of our truth, this movement of our bodies, all of these things contribute to momentum in our life. Just the same way as all of these things that aren't moving contribute to us feeling stuck in our life, or our relationship, or a job, or a career, or a business, or our finances, or our health, or in our spiritual life. And so it always comes back to those same three things we talked about earlier: stuck emotion, we talked about inner conflict, and we talked about disempowerment, the ways that we look externally for something to save us rather than us being our own rescue. When we look outside of ourselves for answers versus going inside and gaining the certainty and the knowing from our own ability to ask and receive information and answers. And so this is why movement is so important. If it's not moving, then it's staying. And what stays grows. And so, rather than wait until the emotion that landed in your body 10 years ago densifies and becomes something else that actually needs to be physically removed, it's good to have a practice of moving energy out of the body that is not meant to be still and stayed. And emotion is one of those things. Being fully expressed emotionally is really important. Emotions are 90 seconds. And then if they're continuing to be felt, it's because you're continuing to reinitiate the cycle of thinking about whatever is bringing the emotion on, feeling more and more of the emotion. And perhaps you're stuck in a loop because you've done that so many times with that particular emotion or scenario. And so I know I've said a lot. I just want to check in, see how everyone's doing. Appreciate everyone for dropping in, those who've joined. And so finally, as I bring this to a close, I just want to offer you a way to begin moving. And so going inside, we've been doing this over the last three weeks with Magic Mondays. Going inside and becoming aware of what's present for you in your body is the first way, because you can't change anything that you're not aware of. So going inside and becoming aware. So if you don't have a practice yet that allows you to become more aware of what is being held on to inside your body, and are not familiar enough with that to identify when things are stuck or not moving, then rewatch this video. I talked about ways that it might show up other than a felt sense. And I would encourage you to start there. Develop a practice that's 5 minutes a day or 1 minute 3 times a day, where you check in and you seek to be able to feel sensation in your body. Just get more comfortable and more connected to what is happening here. This is how we begin to navigate to being, 1, fully expressed, 2, to finding truth and aligning with that and having coherence with our head and heart so that we manifest more quickly and more accurately in our lives. That could just mean magnetizing a relationship. That could just mean feeling ability to access the emotions that we desire to have more of. Maybe that's more peace, more happiness, more love, more connection. We might want more joy, more wonder, more the ability to be in gratitude and feel the energy of that when we're not in a specific gratitude focus, right? Just have that be the energy that we carry, right? So for those of you who do have the ability to sense in and notice, then the next step is to actually identify what you're feeling, right? What are you actually feeling? So there are ways to release without naming it, and I'm offering that and inviting you to be able to name it when possible so that you can know what you're creating, because it helps to be able to identify what you're creating by knowing what's been made. And it also helps you to know how you created it. And knowing how you created it is going to give you the roadmap to knowing what patterns exist for you currently in your nervous system that keep the same loops happening in your life. And so many of us are astute and aware of some of the life patterns that we want to change or shift. And even in those patterns, you can find, we talked about earlier, activation patterns of the thought, emotion, behavior loop that keeps us feeling stuck. So the goal then would be to identify what you're feeling, be able to name it, call that somatic literacy, like being able to identify what we're actually feeling. That way when someone asks you, you can be fully expressed. See how just a small thing one small bit of awareness in ourselves gives us access to much more power. Awareness gives us choice. And so finally, just being able to recognize, and at first you might not even know that you're bracing. Like you might, in those 1 minute, 3 times a day check-ins with yourself, you might just notice, am I hiking my shoulders up? And I didn't even know it. And then you just bring them back down. You might realize you've been holding your stomach in all day. That could be why you're having constipation or cramps, or just a feeling of lack of the ability to inhale fully, because your diaphragm might be being impeded by the constant contraction of your abdominal muscles. So, there are many ways that we armor up and we brace for moments. We brace against the world. We brace against people. We brace within ourselves. And this disallows the free-flowing movement of energy. And so just noticing, even if you can't get to the sensation, just get to the orientation or the position in your body that's happening. And then the more that you notice that and begin to shift it, the less it will happen. And the more aware you'll be of how it happens. You just make a note. Okay, so what happened today? What conversations have I had? What information have I received? What messages, what did I read? What information have I taken in that could have an effect emotionally for me, right? And so I'll leave it there for now. I think that ultimately, all of this is part of what I do. Neurosomatic release is something that I think everyone can do and everyone needs some form or fashion. So neuro meaning nervous system, and then soma, body, somatic release, having a way to let go of what is stopping your flow. That's what we're doing. And recode, neurosomatic recode, is the all-encompassing umbrella of the work, is when we get more into the subconscious domain of release. And body integrity, the actual physical body also needs integrity. So working from bottom up, from inside out, is the way I like to operate, because it really lets you be seen as a whole system and as a human being, not just not just focusing on thoughts and not even just focus on feelings, but the whole self and how you're interacting and harmonizing or not. And coherence between the head and the heart, and moving toward your choices, or you're feeling stuck, or you're moving toward your choices and then moving away from them again. So that might look like self-sabotage. It might be a word you might use. It might be overthinking decisions. Indecisiveness can be really heavy. The guilt and the shame of that surrounds that whole conversation can be heavy. And then there's creation, right? So it's making a choice and then actually being able to have it, be it, to do it. Requires us to be able to embody it, because nothing is had that isn't first embodied. You know you have it when you embody it. You know it's embodied when you have it. Wow, okay, so this has been chock full. I've really loved being with you today. This is my favorite topic. And I hope that it gave you some nuggets and some food for thought, and an actionable step that you can take to practice sensing in and becoming more aware, so that you can have more choice. And we talked about just repositioning the body when you notice the body is positioning in a way that is bracing or holding, or a habit that you don't want to carry forward. Interrupt it, and then do something different. So your body is never ever trying to punish you. It's never trying to hurt you. It's always on your side. There is no inner enemy. There is only an inner me, right? There is no inner enemy. Your body is on your side. Everything that's happening is for your own protection, even if it doesn't feel good in the moment. And there's something trying to complete, something trying to land, trying to come to an end, something trying to finish, to be let go of. And so this very last thing I'm going to say is going to be for anyone. So maybe you've done the first and the second thing already. Maybe you're able to find sensation and you're able to identify what you're feeling. Maybe you're able to name those because you're a little more advanced on the journey to self-awareness in this way. So anytime we create tension, right, it brings greater awareness. So if you're having trouble with either one or two, or you have already accomplished one or two, try this. You're going to find just a quiet place for a minute, and you're just going to create tension in your whole body. You're going to squeeze your fists, you're going to squeeze your jaw, which you might not have to do because it might already be squeezing. You're going to squeeze your arms, you're going to squeeze your legs, you're going to squeeze your belly, you're going to make everything so tight, like create tension on purpose in your muscles. And then hold your breath. And then right before it becomes really uncomfortable, start to slowly let go. Release slowly. And just see what it feels like to practice letting go. What we embody, we get better at doing. Okay? Sometimes I might just make sure all my cabinets in my kitchen are closed because it helps with completion, right? After something's been used, you close the door, you're completing something. Embodiment helps us become the thing that we want. To experience it in this way allows us to recreate this experience another time when we need it. So try that. So we're talking about this. I want you to come back next week. We're going to be starting something very soon called Ignite Your Magic, which is going to be moving out of this kind of self-awareness, actual and observation into more action and doing and creation. But this is the foundation. This work here is the foundation. So I hope you're practicing. It was wonderful being here with you tonight. If I haven't told you already, I love you. And have an amazing and powerful rest of your night. See you next week.